Welcome to that Shero Life podcast. I'm Burnett Sherman, your host and the creator of That Shero Life, helping women show up as Sheroes in their lives with more wellness, joy, and love. Through this podcast, coaching, training, creativity, and using my creative and empathic gifts. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for joining us, meaning me and the guests who will be here momentarily. And thank you for being here. Hello again. Like I said, I've got another wonderful guest on that Shero Life podcast. Today, I am with Anita Kaiser. Now, Anita is a coach who works with empaths and sensitives, helping them move through shame and create the life and business that works for them. A journey of authenticity. Anita's work prioritizes emotional wellness, release of old trauma patterns, and creating a sense of safety in the body through nervous system regulation. Ooh, I can't wait to dive into this with Anita today. Anita, thank you so much for being here on that Shero Life podcast. I'm excited to learn something from you, and hopefully the audience will as well, the women listening. So tell us a little bit more about you. How did you get started on this path?
Thank you so much for having me here, Burnett. It's such a pleasure, and I'm excited to share my journey. So, I've been an entrepreneur for 17 years. So, not always doing what I'm doing now, but I think that gives you an indication that, the normal life, I knew very early that that wasn't for me because it just wasn't. So I started off in the entrepreneurial world. I started off with an MLM, an organic MLM. Um, I think that's a nice, easy way to start for many, many people. Then I owned a retail store, an eco retail store. And, way before everything was eco, like it's so much bigger now. And then I taught yoga to babies and children. And while I was teaching yoga to children, I had a really big focus on emotions, on giving children the vocabulary to connect with their emotions. And so then I moved into teaching adults yoga. And so I did that for quite a while. And then in 2017, my family and I decided we were ready for an adventure. And so we packed up everything and moved into an RV for a year and a half.
We'll have to get into that. Continue.
So that time I thought, oh, can I still teach yoga? And I realized, things needed to change. So that opened the world up to coaching. And sort of through that journey, I started doing the online work. And now I have clients all over the world. And this, the coaching I do now, this is primarily what I do. There is nothing else that I do anymore. So that's sort of the journey in a nutshell.
Okay, wow. So I just want to hit rewind a little bit. That year and a half in the RV, you just have to tell me because it sounds you said the family packed up. So you had children,
Just one.
one child, and then so it was three of you or so in the RV
Yes.
for a year and a half. How was that?
I mean, it was it was incredible, and it was hard, and it's been 6 years now, and I'm now at another big transition in my life. And I just recently was reflecting about what shifted for me personally in that journey. I mean, there were a lot of really uncomfortable moments because, as with everything, you think it's going to look one way. And then when you get there, I mean, it's never the same.
And you're in a tight
And
space.
it was a tight space. And I before we did this, it's not like I had been an RVer. Like we didn't have an RV and go do this on the weekends. Like we were like, we're going to do this. We bought an RV, we bought a truck, and we set the date and off we went.
Oh, wow. So I think it's interesting. We can always come back to this if you want to, but part of your thing is doing things and taking steps when you're uncomfortable. And I could see how you're like, okay, we're going to do something big. This is brand new, strange, and unknown territory. And you took the steps and you did it anyway. And you got some huge lessons out of it, it seems, that you're still processing 6 years later from the journey.
Yeah. And actually one of the big things that I didn't know at the time when, we decided to do this, but so much of who I am as a being and sort of my mission on earth, if, you know, like for lack of better terminology, is about traveling and awaking the land.
Mm,
And I don't have, the science or the specifics to explain what I mean exactly by that, but I know this was a massive journey connecting in with the land. And um now where I am in my life, like I spend a lot of time outside, even though I live in a place where there's winter and, it's less time in the winter, but I need to be outside, connecting with the animals, connecting with the trees, listening to the birds. And without that, I'm not feeling very good or balanced.
So that's kind of how you recharge is in nature.
Yeah.
And it's good to know that. Definitely.
Yeah.
Very good to know that. Wow. So tell me a bit about what is it that has you working with empaths and sensitives? What brought you to that field of clientele?
You know, it's funny because I don't know about your entrepreneurial journey, but for me, it took me a long time to own that niche because that's who I am. And that would be really easy to just talk to people like me. And when I first got into this coaching, I was really banging up against that.
Mm,
I wasn't able to just be like, yes, these are my people because this is who I am. And I tried a bunch of different things and it was all really hard. And in the 6 years that I've been coaching, I've seen over and over again that when I'm hitting up against something, this is the wrong direction. Like, that's not the way it's supposed to be.
mm,
It's supposed to be easy, not effortless, but in flow, right? I don't want to feel like I'm swimming upstream, or fighting the energy.
right.
So, I had that niche journey and then I started realizing, of course, this is me. I am an empath. I am sensitive. I have had these gifts my entire life where I walk into a space and I know how people feel. I know what's going on there. And, as a child, before I learned, oh, people don't really want to hear that stuff, like, right? I would just say whatever the truth was. And you can imagine, maybe you've had that experience. People respond in a variety of ways, none of them which feel very pleasant when
Like,
you're a
oh.
child, right? Exactly that. Like, so, I had to do a lot of work to own this in myself and to get really comfortable with it. And now, of course, this is the work I do. So people pay me for that expertise that I was giving away as a child that people didn't want to hear.
They just couldn't appreciate it then. And probably because you had to grow into it as well. You had to get comfortable with the fact that, yeah, this is who I am. And I can understand and relate because I've done the butting up against my own gifts as an empath and intuitive, and it's like this push and pull, but at some point just settling into it and deciding how you use it. And the fact that you're using it as part of your coaching, you've woven your gift into your work. I think, you solve the issue of how do I help people
Yeah.
and use who I am.
Yeah. And this, you know, at this particular time on the planet where we are, it is so like, this is what I came here for. This is this time now to birth the new earth, to support people like myself who have these gifts, like you, who have these gifts and aren't feeling confident, aren't ready to bring them out. We are needed now,
Yeah.
like now more than ever. And so getting comfortable in ourselves and embodying that so we can hold the vibration of the 5D and bring people up with us. I mean, this is it.
So it's interesting because when you talk about that, I think about I'm a writer, so I've written fantasy and sci-fi, and there's always the journey. And, you talk about the hero's journey, I say the Shero's journey, but that moment where you actually have to say yes to your adventure. Like for you, it was in that RV, I guess, when you finally had to say yes to
Yeah.
your adventure, and then the work starts. It's like you
Yeah.
say yes, I'm going to show up. I'm going to go on this journey. I'm going to reach this outcome. I'm going to do this thing, whatever it is for you. And then the work begins. And then you find your mentor, your guide, your team, whoever it is, you get the resources around you. And that's when it starts. And I love that you were on your own, you were on an adventure that was completely unrelated, right? And then from that, you were like, okay, it's time for me to say yes to the next thing and to yourself. So I love how that played out.
Yeah. So this is so interesting to me what you're saying because I just, I'm at a new transition now, which I haven't mentioned yet. And I'm leaving my 20-year partnership. The house is sold and I'm going traveling on my own. This is a massive transition,
That is
right? I don't
massive.
have, uh, I know where I'm traveling for 3 months. And after that, I'm not sure what's going to happen.
Wow.
And that is not like I'm a planner, right? I've always planned everything. So this is like the wildest, craziest thing I've ever done. And so of course the people who are not as spiritual, the family of origin, like my family is like, what is happening here, right? What are you doing? And I keep explaining to them that I'm betting on me.
Mm,
I'm betting on being able to figure this out. And I know it's not the norm. I know it's not what I've been told I'm supposed to do, but I'm very confident that this is the path I'm supposed to be on. And I trust I'm going to be okay.
mm. And having that, I think as an empath, as someone who you're probably able to feel that, you can feel it's okay somewhere deep in your heart and in yourself. No one else is going to feel that who doesn't feel like if they're not connected in that way, they probably aren't going to feel that same way as you. And I can also imagine that there's a lot of women who are making difficult decisions about their lives, about their future, their careers, their families, all kinds of difficult decisions about their lives that they can feel in their heart space, you know? Um, and that moment where you have to trust that part of yourself and trust that connection that I know no one else sees the path I see, but I'm still going to trust that heart space of mine. I'm going to trust that emotional part how I feel about this. And
Yeah.
then, as you say, take steps, take action. And I love what you're saying. You've got the first 3 months, and I think
Yeah,
people need to hear you don't have to have it figured out to the end.
that's right.
You know the end's gonna be okay, but,
Yeah.
have a few steps planned out and then the rest it reveals. Is that kind of how you're seeing how this will.
Yes. Yes. And, eh, I mean, this, like, I just want to rewind for a second and just say, like, in my relationship, it's not like my relationship was horrible. It was fine. It was comfortable. There were good things that happened, but I knew in my heart this was not the long-term path. I have this very alternative path. And like my ex, that's not his path. It's not. And, you know, I knew we had to part. And
Mhm,
um I fought it for sure. I was like, come on, I can just pretend this is gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine.
mhm,
And just, you know, the more I tried to fight that, the more my heart was like, what are you doing? You can't do this. This is not what you're here for. You have a bigger mission. So let's go. And so, I did. I made that decision and it was uncomfortable. And I cried a lot about it, even though I knew it was right. It was still sad and
mhm.
difficult.
Right. So, yeah, and I think people need to acknowledge that just because it's the right decision doesn't make it always the easy decision. And it doesn't mean that you're not emotionally connected to someone and you've got history. 20 years is a long time. That's a lot of history. And I think part of that is mourning what was so that you can open up a space to allow what is meant to be, but you still have to go through that process. And
That's
you
right.
and you work with the trauma and um, releasing trauma patterns. And I want to kind of shift a little bit because if someone is truly in a situation that is traumatic, because some marriages end and you're kind of cordial, it's you've
Yeah.
just grown apart, and some are just unhealthy in
Yeah.
many ways.
Yes.
Many ways. Do you work with women who are trying to navigate in situations that are more traumatic?
So the work I do is with women who have past trauma. When you're in a situation where
Mhm.
it is unsafe right now, that's like you need to get out of that situation, right? I mean, and that until that step is taken, I can't do the work. We can't heal, right? It's like,
Because you're still
you've
there.
got the scab and or like the cut and it just won't close. Like you can't do anything at that point, right? So I just want to acknowledge, just in case, people are thinking, oh, well, you must have had an easy life. I certainly have had much trauma myself. I come from sexual abuse, I come from emotional abuse, physical abuse, and um, and with that, I still have had a privileged life, right? That's um, so the work I do with sensitive and empath entrepreneurs, as we get on that entrepreneurial journey, a lot of those early experiences get in our way,
Mm,
right? So that's when, if we're working on visibility or, procrastination or whatever, there are parts of ourselves that are responding from whatever happened to us as children, right? And so that's the kind of trauma healing that I do. And um generally we try not to hit it directly because that is very intense on the nervous system. It can be done, but you have to have a very regulated system before that, and most of us don't have that.
right. So you say you kind of hit it indirectly.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
So, like, for example, with your business, right? So let's say raising your prices or, having reasonable prices. So when I first started, I was charging $50 an hour because that's all my nervous system would hold. And there's a certain worthiness journey that you have to go on. So in my history, there are moments in my childhood where things happened that gave me a very clear message, you are not worthy. But going back to those moments is a bit intense. So when I work on pricing in this moment here and now and how I feel about that can lessen some of the past traumas. Even though, in a session I might remember, oh, somebody saying something to me that, exasperated or first hit that not worthy moment, we're dealing with the issue here and now.
Mm,
Right? Is that
yeah.
clear?
So you're taking it out of the past and you're saying, this is how it's affecting you today in this
Yes.
situation. And
Yeah.
when you start healing that, it also goes back and heals the
Yes.
child, the past.
Yes.
Ah, I like that. It's kind of softened some of the work around it, because I know I've done some work on like kind of neural reprogramming of past memories and putting a different spin on them to change how they affect me today.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of just softening the blow, because you need to do the work,
Yeah.
but that what you said earlier about things can be more easy. It doesn't have to.
Yeah. Yeah. And this, like the nervous system, when you like try and get in there really pointed, it does not like that.
Mm.
Right? Your fight, flight response, freeze, so many of us are operating in life from that functionally frozen place. We're the high functioning ones in the world, and a piece of us is frozen. So we need to thaw that gently.
I like that. I do. I like the idea of one, because it almost forces you to slow down a little bit and be present, because you have to, in order for something to thaw slowly and gently, is to be here in this moment where you are today. Is that
Yeah.
something you try to do with your clients, is just kind of bring them
Yes,
here?
absolutely. I mean, presence is a gift, right? And most of us are so busy disassociating, disconnected because we've built these coping strategies. We had, you know, a good childhood. We all had moments where our needs weren't met, whether it was intentional or unintentional. That's part of the journey here on this planet. And so, first honoring that and then creating space for a different story, right? And building that presence in little increments.
And so I want to talk a little bit about, for those of us who are empathic and sensitives, and I don't know if you deal with this in this area, but I'm thinking about like those of us who have those sensitivities. We have our own stuff that we are working through, right? It's all the stuff in the past, the present, all the stuff. But then we're also getting things that aren't even ours from outside of us, that can,
Yeah.
sometimes it feels like it's ours, but it's not really. How do you work with people who maybe not just dealing with their own past and traumas, but connecting other people's?
Yeah. And this is a really huge thing, it's all of us. eh, there is a certain codependency initially when you first are realizing you're an empath. This is part of the deal because we automatically transmuted energy in our households. We automatically did this fusing to enmeshment to stay safe, right? This happened for us where dad's cranky today. I don't really like it when he's cranky. How can I fix this? And this just happened for us automatically. So as adults, then we need to start with our boundaries and get
Mhm.
really solid in ourself. And it's this journey of learning, who am I? What do I really want? How can I feel safer in sharing those wants and desires? And as you do that, then it becomes much easier to recognize, oh, that's not mine. In the past, I would have just owned that. It would have just come in so quickly. And and I just want to be clear, if I go to a big social event, I need to do some cleansing afterwards because the information just comes in and I get bowled over if I'm not careful. So it's a real journey in mindfulness and
Mhm.
a continual practice.
I think that's important too, and not just clearing afterwards, but protecting yourself before you even go into those large or just busy spaces or and places, 'cause
Yeah.
energetically busy places. I
Yeah.
remember early, many years ago, and I went to a farmer's market in a local farmer's market, and it was a Saturday, and it was just chaos. It felt like chaos. Like
Yeah.
I was like, what is going on? I started like crying. I had to put on like shades and like I was clinging to my husband. I was like, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
But it was just so intense. Um, I learned
And
to
and
like,
I Yeah, and I think this is so often how you first start to realize, oh, geez, something's going on here that maybe not everybody is experiencing, right? Like being an empath, being sensitive. You like that's how it started for me, where I was like driving and I'm crying and I'm like, I'm not even sad. What is happening here, Or
yeah,
I'd walk by a 911 call on the street and there'd be ambulance and stuff, and I couldn't breathe. I was like,
you were
so
feeling it
these
all.
experiences,
Mhm,
you get to clue in and you're like, oh, okay, something else is happening here. I want to look at this.
mhm. And it's and recognizing when it's yours, when it's not yours, and how to protect your space. But that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation. Um, yeah. So let's talk a little bit about this active nervous system that we have.
Ooh,
And
yeah.
just tell me a little bit about like if people needed to know like one or two things about their nervous system or about how they can move through difficult and uncertain, well, let's say difficult times, uncertain times, uncomfortable times, and take those
Yeah.
next steps. What would you advise a woman who's, coming up in their 30s and 40s and beyond? It's like, okay, it's time to do something different.
I mean, at that time in life, in your 30s and 40s, life is really busy, right? This is, usually when you have young kids and there's 8 million things happening in your life, or, and you're managing a household. And the easiest, simple advice is becoming more present. And so when you're so busy, you have all these things going on. It's like my suggestion is, if you're doing the dishes, don't listen to a podcast, do the dishes and really feel the water. Notice your feet on the floor, even just for 5 or 10 minutes. Building this space into your life is how things start to settle. So you're folding the laundry and you're watching TV. Turn the TV off for 5 or 10 minutes. Focus on the task, right? It's like these mono
Mhm,
tasks, so that you can really be present. So you notice, oh, my hips feel kind of funny. Oh, I'm quite tired today, or whatever it is that's going on for you, because we have such busy lives. And the busier we are, the less we're connected to our inner alignment. And your inner alignment, this is the compass that is the most important thing as we move forward.
mm. for being able to tune in without, you're not even actually having to set aside extra time. It's just using the time you have
Yeah.
and
And
putting
that's, I
someone.
mean, story. When you're down the line at my age now, my daughter's at university. I don't have those responsibilities. So now I take much more focused time. And that's just a given for me. I don't like it never happens that I don't meditate in a day, or spend time in nature. That's just what I need to thrive here. But it's taken me a journey to accept that, to know that, and to make it just a given in my life.
Right. And you had to make it happen. You had to set time. And it was an
Yeah.
active choice. It sounds like, you said, okay, this is what I need for self-care,
Yes.
and I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Any other nuggets, words of wisdom, or insights you want to share with the women who will listen to this?
I think that the biggest thing is if you have a dream, if you're feeling something in your heart, this is what you're here for, and figure out a way to give it some space.
Mm, give it some space. That's good, Anita. Very good. So I have to ask you a question before we move into the next piece here. I give us many messages, just a brief message to either my guest or to those people who may be tuning in. Would you like a message?
Love a message.
Okay, wonderful. So while I am bringing that forth, why don't you share with our listeners how they can connect with you online, if you have anything you want to give them or that they can download from your site, just how they can learn a little bit more about Anita Kaiser and what you do.
So you can find me at AnitaKaiserWellness.com. That's my website. And then, of course, I'm on the socials, Anita Kaiser Wellness, both Instagram and Facebook. I have a YouTube channel. And I also have a lot of free meditations on Insight Timers. So you can find me in those places. And if you're interested in getting a little taste of my work, the freebie that I think will be dropped below or wherever, somewhere on this, you'll see is a tap along for you to stop feeling like a burden. Because I know for myself, I stopped myself from sharing my gifts, from being as visible because I was scared to be a burden. And so, if you resonate with that, if that comes up and keeps you playing small, this tap along is going to be helpful for that.
Wonderful. Thank you. And, and you're talking just regular tapping. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So the little message is not one seamless message. Like sometimes I'll just get like a phrase or something. Instead of I got like a word here. I got Germany was the first thing that came up. And then travel and either learning or teaching circles, like you doing some kind of um, teaching circles as you move through to different places and connecting with centers or places and coming to visit them doing kind of teaching circles. And I got like in quarterly rounds or some kind of like seasonal rounds of doing this over the next year. That's what I received.
Oh, wow. I love this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I guess it
It's
makes sense
beautiful.
in some way.
Yeah, I mean, Germany is one of my stops. It's where I have family. It's where it would be easiest if I were to host something. It would be easiest for me to do because I already have a bit of a network there through my family. Um, yeah, that was really, thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm glad I could bring that forward for you. Because I was like, they said Germany first. I was like, okay, let me write that down. So good. So I'm going to leave that message with you. And I want to just say thank you again, Anita, for joining me on that Share Life podcast, for sharing your wisdom and your experience. And even as you move through this next journey, that you continue to hold that space for yourself and you continue to be bold and courageous. I can already see you doing some pretty cool things as you move, and but I'm hearing is move around the globe, but go and share your light and your work and helping other people who are sensitive, who are empathic, and who may have trouble stepping forth and using who they are and being who they are to do that in a bigger way for our planet and for the other people on this planet. So thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you. I appreciate it. I hope that you all watching will appreciate this message and listen to it over again, because you might get some new nuggets if you listen to it twice. I know when I listen to something again, I hear something new. So thank you, Anita. Thank you, everyone, for being here on that Share Life podcast. Did you have any final words, Anita, before we?
This was such a blessing. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. All right, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.